Happy Tuesday, everybody. Happy Tuesday. If you're on here, get those likes up. Get those likes up, everybody. Tag anyone. Share this with anyone that you think they find interesting. And as you guys are coming in here, like I said, Black Manosphere. Happy Tuesday, everybody. I hope you're enjoying your day, enjoying your week. This is going to be an interesting conversation, I think. Also something that I feel that I wanted to touch upon. Before we get into the whole conversation, though, as to whether or not the untimely passing of Kevin Samuels represents in the manosphere, there's a couple of things that I actually wanted to cover off that I think are really important for us to consider. So again, guys, for those of you who are hopping on, hit the like button. Also, if you would like to show support to the show, please do so. You can find me on Cash App or Venmo, Sade. Also, super chats are open. I'll be sure to acknowledge all super chats. As I say before, guys, support your favorite content creators. I do my best to bring you content that is informative, thought-provoking, educational, entertaining, all the above. But this is a group effort. So, you guys, this is a community-ran platform. So, like I said, show some love, show some support. What's going on, Kevin C? What is going on, Kevin C? Okay, so just to get right into the topic. So by now we're all aware of the untimely passing of Kevin Samuels. It's caught pretty much almost everybody by surprise. I'm still myself, I wake up sometimes and I can't believe it. I'm like, wow, this person's really gone. And it's interesting because I didn't know how much he really shaped the conversation or how much he was driving some of this narrative until not only his passing, but until I'm seeing the ripple effect that it has had. So, and that's what we have going on today. I think, days later, people are still talking about it. I'm still seeing every single day new videos, major content creators covering him off, talking about, the latest and the greatest, giving their input, some of them giving their conjecture. So it's like, whether you loved him or hated him, whether you agreed or disagreed, I think we can all collectively agree that he definitely has made an impact. So that is what we're seeing. Now, here is, a couple of things I wanted to say. I've seen a few major content creators come out and speak for the collective of Black women. I mentioned this in my community tab, Real Talk with Yanie being one of them, who I actually did a review of her content a few months back. Check it out if you haven't already. But Real Talk with Yanie being one, Milan being another one. Now, usually, I'm not usually one to dig too deeply into another person's content or their position, but I felt this was important to address because they essentially say that they're speaking on the collective of Black women. So with that, I listened to some of their videos, I listened to their perspective on this whole Kevin Samuels scenario, and I am the first to say, or I will say that I do not agree with the collective stance. Here's why. I'm going to start with some of the different positions I saw Paris Milan take. So I think the day that it happened, that it was trending, or maybe the day after I saw her go live, she has since privatized the live, removed it, fine. But I was listening to her live, and essentially the conversation or the main objectives that I heard her, or advice that I heard her give to Black women was, hey, Black woman, basically get suited and booted, right? Get your guns, get whatever protection you need, because these Black men are going to go and basically react revenge. So that I mean, I didn't catch the whole live. I touched a good portion of it though. And that was pretty much the position. Like, the passing of Kevin Samuels is going to create this really dangerous and violent ripple effect where these Black men are going to continue to be violent, and even more so. So that was the narrative that I heard. I also saw another video that she posted. She's left this video up where basically she linked a very disturbing domestic abuse and essentially pedophilia scenario. She linked that to Kevin Samuels and said, hey, these are the disciples of Kevin Samuels. These are what they are doing, and this is what they are capable of. Ladies, beware. Be careful. Shout out to Eugene Steele with the 10. I still do not understand what the manosphere was about. I know that the manosphere was already moving towards its demise, or at least moving in the wrong direction long before Kevin's death. Shout out to Eugene Steele. So it sounds like we have someone who might be opposed to the manosphere. Interesting. But sorry about that. You guys can hear me? Okay, I hit mute for a second. Me was what I was saying. So yeah, so just to continue the conversation, about the different material I saw from Paris Milan related to this topic. She was advising Black women to get strapped, to get protection, to take care of themselves, because these Black men, she used the term nakers, are going to go out and avenge the death of their daddy, or avenge the death of their leader. Right. So that was it. And like I said, she also, which had the videos up as we speak, where she links this to this whole thing to a very, very disturbing, horrible example of pedophilia, where I think the woman involved, or the mother involved, or the daughter who was abused, was a Kevin Samuels supporter. So so here are the primary issues I have with that take. And again, I'm addressing this as these are two women who speak on the collective of Black women. The issue that I have with Paris Milan's positioning is, one, first of all, this whole narrative that Black men are by default violent, and by default barbaric, and by default going to abuse and attack women. To me, I see nothing helpful about that. We've had this conversation before on previous videos, where it's like, okay, when we talk about protection, one, how do you qualify that? Just saying, okay, Black women aren't being protected. Okay, based upon what? They like to use Malcolm X's quote that says, oh, Black women are the most unprotected one, but they also forget the quote where Malcolm X literally said, oh, well, the Black man is God. So they take these things out of context to paint a narrative, but don't really have numbers to substantiate that. Another argument that I hear, right, is that, okay, every 5 hours, every 5.5 hours, a Black woman is being killed, primarily by the hands of Black men. I've shared this before in previous videos. That number is false. Why? Because it's being pulled from the FBI stats that are looking at arrest. They're not looking at convictions. 1/3 of those convictions, the race is unknown. 1/3 of those, 1/3 of those arrests, the race is unknown. 1/3 of the crimes are unsolved. So the whole every 5.5 hours, if you really look into it, that's really fueling this narrative of Black men are dangerous, are based upon faulty numbers, faulty logics. It really is. And then even if we go and look at the convictions, even if you go do that, you got to look at the percentage of Black men who are exonerated, which, by the way, over 50% of exonerations are Black men. So that's a whole other discussion I'm going to get down into the Black feminist side. But at the end of the day, what I hear a lot of times is a lot of fear mongering, but I rarely hear it substantiated by facts. I oftentimes hear it substantiated by narrative. There is a horrible scenario there, again, from a person who, one of the persons was a Kevin Samuels follower. She happened to be in a really horrible scenario where she allowed her daughter to be abused. Horrible. But Kevin Samuels never ever promoted abuse. He never did that. And I saw her take different clips, different audios, and then kind of create this narrative. And I'm just like, if you would actually listen to any of his content at length, you knew that was not what he was that's not what he was saying. So this is the danger that I think anybody can fall into when they take things out of context, don't really seek to understand the full message, or already come in with their own perceptions. You can completely come to your own conclusions that are not based upon logic. Kevin Samuels never promoted pedophilia. He never promoted abuse of domestic violence. That's never what he said. He never promoted a man not working or Black woman muling. Here's another thing in the live that I looked at a few days ago. In the scenario that she used where there is the domestic abuse, the man was not working, the woman was working. And then that went into further promote the narrative that says, see, Black women are muling for these men, this is dangerous, yada, 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 yada. The thing about it is, again, Kevin Samuels himself never would have supported a scenario when the man wasn't working. Those are the kind of men that he actually would have judged. Those are the kind of men that he probably actually would have been like, he would have reprimanded. Because he's the one that actually said, unless a man can pay 100% of the bills, he shouldn't even be in a relationship. He's the one that said that. So it's funny because while there is a complaint of him having such high standards for Black women, his standards for Black men were just as high. So again, you know, the bigger concern, I listen to the arguments, I listen to these men are going to be violent, these men are going to this and that. And I'm like, yes, there is absolutely violence in the Black community. Yes. Is there domestic abuse? Yes. Do Black men hurt Black women? Yes. But also, by the way, we have got to start to be more honest about what is going on. You can't say that, you cannot make the assumption that all these Black men, the majority of Black men are doing this. They're not. We also cannot make the assumption that domestic violence is not happening, that it's not bidirectional, that there are not also women who are being violent and sometimes even initiating violence. And when I hear the passing of someone who was such a substantial as Kevin Samuels, when I hear his passing being used for Black women such as myself to promote essentially misandrous ideas that we've all heard our entire life, and to not be based upon one single fact, I take issue with that, because I think if anything, it is driving a wedge. You putting fear into women and saying, go get protected because these men are going to avenge you. And then in the same instance, we're complaining about Black men not protecting us. You have to understand that on some level, that those are the kind of beliefs, those are the kind of ideas that if we promote them as women to other women, that creates a divide. That creates misandry. Now, anytime you see Black men, you're nervous. You're thinking, oh my gosh, is he going to try to abuse me? Like, those are not the kind of messages that in my opinion, are constructive, that are actually going to help, are going to encourage women to make better decisions, that are going to encourage women how to be practically safe, but at the same time, know how to vet for good men, know how to vet to make sure you're not in this scenario we're going to be taken advantage of. Like, I heard those videos, and at the end of the day, what I heard was just more fear mongering, period. Nothing based upon facts. We hear the 5.5 hour stat, completely wrong. I'm going to break that down in my Black femicide video. I've been working on that for some time. That stat is completely wrong. And if that is the foundation of the argument, that every 5.5 hours a Black woman is being killed by a Black man, if that is the foundation, that there's a whole argument to fuel women to get guns so they can protect themselves, it is being done based upon a false premise. And then we wonder why there's such dissension. We're teaching our women not to trust our men for the very simple fact that they're Black, for the very simple fact that they're us. We're assuming that everybody in the community is doing this, versus making a distinction that there is absolutely 100% trauma and chaos and abuse that happens in the community. And also, by the way, it is men and women doing it. And when we fail to have a full conversation about how abuse is happening all across the board and the ways men and women are damaging each other or have damaged each other, when we fail to be honest and look at it from the full perspective, then we cannot think that there's going to ever really be any progress. And the strength of a community is not when men and women are fighting. In promoting, in my opinion, promoting any idea that's going to give women a reason to turn away at mass and go by themselves and do things by themselves and not have the protection of men, I don't see that as the building blocks for a healthy community. I don't see that as a way to promote health for the health and well-being of Black women. And so when I heard that, when I heard her collective response to represent the collective of Black women, in response to Kevin Samuels passing, a man who made such a ripple effect, I had to say, I don't agree. I don't agree. I don't agree that his passing means that I now have to assume and should assume that now the collective of Black men are going to seek revenge on me. I don't agree with that. I don't. So anyways, guys, if you're on here, hit the shout out to, is that C? I don't know how I mute. Am I mute? Am I still mute? Can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me? Okay, if you guys cannot hear me, let me know. Let me know. Can you guys hear me? Technical. Okay, cool. All right, so shout out to C with the 10. I think that's C Gilly. I hope I didn't kill it. With a 10 on the super chat. I appreciate you. Appreciate you guys. Again, if you like what we're about, you can show support to the show. Find me on Cash App or Venmo. Shay Sade, also super chats are open. Like I said, I'll be sure to acknowledge those super chats. That's what I said. So I listened to Paris Milan. I listened to her advice to Black women to essentially, like I said, get the protection. I have no issue with a woman getting protection if she wants to be strapped. No, I have no issue with that. The issue that I have is with the narrative being perpetuated strongly because it's based upon false premises. And to pick one, to find a random scenario and to say, oh, because this person who likes Kevin Samuels did this, therefore all his followers are going to do this. That's like faulty logic. I think I saw somebody in the comment section say, okay, so I like Drake. If I like Drake and I commit a crime, is it Drake's fault? And that's the same logic that we do if we find somebody who liked Kevin Samuels, who liked the video, who did a comment or whatever, and then said, oh, well, because that person liked Kevin Samuels, therefore Kevin Samuels is promoting violence, or therefore Kevin Samuels is promoting abuse. No, he's not. The clips that I saw her use, either they were largely taken out of context or they just strictly were manipulated and they weren't actually meaning what he was saying. That's just the way I saw it. So like I said, I don't agree. I just simply do not agree with the messaging that gives Black women a reason to look at all men as dangerous, or look at all Black men as inherently dangerous. Yes, there are Black men who are dangerous. Let me say that. Also, yes, there are Black women who are dangerous. And I think when we start to talk about domestic violence, we need to start to have these conversations from a more realistic vantage point, instead of not only instilling fear into women, but giving them a reason to become misandrous. And then at the end of the day, even become more protected. Because again, anything that's going to give women a reason to walk away fully from men, they're already putting themselves in a more vulnerable situation, a more vulnerable scenario. And if you think that you walking away from Black men and you, again, going into another community and divesting into another community, that you're also not going to be at risk for abuse, that you can also be at risk for being taken advantage of, you have another thing coming. in a country where sundown towns still exist. I literally just earlier today I saw somebody talk about a Black man delivery, and he somehow ended up in a sundown town, and he's sharing his experience. In a country where the sundown town that still happens, like we cannot be that just ignorant. We cannot be that unaware to think that we can just somehow, just by us completely divesting or moving away from the collective of Black men and engaging with other men is going to make us safe. No, you're going to find danger in anywhere. And this is why the conversation should be more maybe based upon character. And the conversation should also be based upon what's actually happening. Also, by the way, domestic abuse in the Black community happens bi-directionally, period. And as I mentioned before in previous videos, the violence is oftentimes more initiated by the women. But that's a whole nother topic. Y'all not ready for that. So, that's my position on it. And then, like I said, I wanted to touch quickly upon what I saw with Road Talk with Yanie. And again, why am I doing this is because these are two women who say that they represent essentially the collective of Black women, and they care about the collective of Black women, and I can respect that. But as a Black woman who listened to the positions, I don't agree. I was like, I don't agree with this. So I don't want to sit idly by and pretend like I agree with the position that I don't. I find it damaging. Road Talk with Yanie, she mentioned kind of similar to Paris Milan domestic abuse. KevinSamuels never promoted domestic abuse. We know this. Now, there's that clip that's usually oftentimes used where he's talking about domestic discipline. Let me be the first to say, I personally don't agree with that domestic discipline. I wouldn't do it, but there are people out there who actually do choose that way of living. And here's the thing about domestic discipline that is a lot different than domestic violence, right? Domestic discipline, again, you have to opt in. This is a time when two consenting adults come together and say, okay, here is going to be the way that you and I decide to handle certain issues, certain agreements. And even in one of the videos, he broke it down. He said, okay, you and I, we sit down, let's say I'm in a relationship with a woman, that woman and the man, they sit down beforehand, they hash things out. They say, okay, here's going to be our process of solving conflict. If we've gone through all of these different forms of conflict and it still hasn't been resolved, here is the final resort. But again, I want to be clear, domestic discipline is based upon consent. This is a woman and a man who come together and they both choose to be in a scenario where, God forbid, an issue arises that isn't basically addressed any other way, then they resort to domestic discipline. Listen, like I said, I do not, I wouldn't do that. I didn't promote that. But what I'm saying is that there are consenting adults today who actually do practice that way of living. Women actually have seen a few, I think on Truly, I saw a few randomly pop up in I'll probably do them algorithm. But nevertheless, again, consenting women who choose to say, yes, if I get out of line, I will allow my husband to spank me. I don't get it, but women do it. That is completely different than being in a scenario where someone will involuntarily abuse, take advantage of you, make you just bloody. Those are completely two scenarios. So again, two consenting adults who agree that, okay, if I as a woman get out of hand, you can spank me, is different than a domestic violence where there's involuntary abuse. Sometimes it could be blood. It could be fatal. It's completely different things. So I think him talking about domestic discipline and saying, hey, this is a way that people do stuff. This is a way that people choose to live. Him bringing that up as an option, which one I don't agree with, but again, him talking about that is different than him actively saying, oh, go beat your wife, go eliminate all these women, he never did that. He never ever did that. So I think to paint him as a man who is promoting domestic violence is either it's a misunderstanding of what's going on, or it's just flat out manipulation and just trying to slander his name. But either way, that's never what he did. And like I said, I could say this is a person who honestly looked at this content for some time, watched it for some time and said, I agree, disagree. Never once saw him openly and actively promote domestic violence. So that's one thing that I saw I saw Real Talk with Yanie say this man is promoting domestic violence. I'm like, no, actually he's not. And here's why. So I don't agree with that point. Another one I saw, she'd mentioned, she'd taken different clips and talked about, about him being insensitive about children who could be in a scenario where they are taken advantage of. Now, I saw that clip. I completely agree that I think the way that was handled was definitely could have been taken out of context. So I agree. It's like, yeah, that whole conversation was really uncomfortable because, of course, the worst thing, I know people who they were kids and they were taken advantage of and the parent didn't believe them. So of course that can be really damaging. You didn't want to promote that. But that clip that I saw being used as a reason to promote the idea that, like, oh, see, he's promoting pedophilia. It's like, no, if you actually listen and understand, what we have to try to remember is that the whole premise of this conversation is a high value man, right, talking to a high value woman. So the assumption is, first of all, this guy's already well respected in his craft, well respected in his career. He has the understanding and connections with other high value men. He is a man of influence. He's a man with means. He's a man with wealth. So it's like the conversation is already, it's not starting at the Pookie and Ray Ray level, if you will. This is starting at a level with a man who has already proven himself to have achieved honor and success and reputation. So this is the starting conversation. I want to start there. Also, when I listened to that video, what I specifically heard was him say, okay, if an accusation was made against me as your husband, what would you do? And then she says, okay, I would leave. And then he goes and says, wait, okay, so you wouldn't first investigate it? So what I heard in that clip that they oftentimes use to try to say that he was promoting pedophilia was essentially him saying, wait, before you just go and throw the whole marriage away, you need to at least first advocate and make sure that you're understanding what's going on. That's it. I never heard him say, oh, well, if she's lying, or even if it's true, whatever, just throw it under the rug, or even if it's true, it don't matter. I heard him say, wait, before you just automatically assume that what this child said is true, please make sure you do due diligence. That's all I heard. That to me is completely different than, oh, even if the kid is right, just tell her to shut up and don't deal with it. Like I never heard that. So again, I'm hearing those conversations and I'm just like, that is not what he actually meant. And this is the thing that I hear over and over and over again. These little snippets that are taken out of context, these little 4 or 5 minute bites, and then that can be used to implicate his entire career. And I'm like, again, that is incredibly dangerous. Last thing that I want to touch upon real quick is this whole idea again that he's misogynist. He's misogynistic. And that topic came up over and over again. Why is he misogynistic? Because he's talking about, a woman's weight, a woman's size, yada, 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 yada. We can go back and forth about whether or not that's true. But I do want to be clear that the level of smoke that he had, for women, he also had for men. This is the same man that for this first 3-4 years on this platform or on YouTube, basically spent his time talking to men. He had the same smoke. He had the same harsh criticism, and even after his channel blew up, he still had a few shows that were dedicated to men. So again, the same man who said women, you should be at least size 4, 6, fit, feminine, friendly, cooperative. The same man who said that also said to men, if you cannot pay for 100% of the bills, then you shouldn't even be in a relationship. You need to be able to pay for 100% of the bills. If you're not a high value man, meaning you have made money over 6 figures for what I think he said, like over 5 years, you're well respected by other high value men. Like, he had this really high criteria. He's like, if you're not this, then you don't even need to be in this conversation. So what oftentimes I think is taken out of context is the fact that this whole conversation, although it was speaking to everybody, is really at the end of the day supposed to be based upon the top 10%, if you will. It's not supposed to be just for your every single day person. So again, if there's high standards for a woman who wants to be in a high kind of lifestyle, that can be considered misogynistic, because, like, as he even mentioned before, he's not a pastor or a spiritual leader or a man of the cloth. He is an image consultant. He is someone who's consulting you on, if you want to get into this kind of lifestyle, here's the kind of image that you should get. I see nothing wrong with that. That's just like if you went to a modeling, let's say I went to a modeling agency, and then they're just like, oh, well, you need to lose 10 pounds, or you should be a foot higher. I couldn't say, oh, that modeling agency is misogynoir. It's just like, no, I want to get into a certain position. I want to do a certain thing, and this is a requirement. I can't call it misogynistic because that's the requirement. And so that is what I saw when it was pertaining to Black women. And I did not see that same level of smoke. I did not see that same level of smoke when that heat was given towards men. People just kind of looked the other way. They didn't care because they're used to it. If a man gets called overweight or fat or lazy or no good for nothing, or like, nobody cares. Nobody cares. But like I said, if that same level of energy is put towards women, it becomes misogynistic. And so the reason I think overall, like I said, I looked at their positions, I didn't agree. I can respectfully disagree, but again, the reason I wanted to address what they said is because they're speaking on the collective of Black women. I'm just like, I don't agree with that. Because at the end of the day, the way I see it, it gives a reason for us to continue to promote misandry. It gives us a reason to continue to promote ideas that we've already believed about men, period, that aren't really healthy or not based upon fact, or at the very least are based upon our own drama or our own trauma. And it is not, this isn't bridging the gap. And here's the bigger thing. A lot of these women, when he was alive, were telling the followers, both of them, to my understanding, were telling the followers to not listen to him. So I'm just like, okay, I can respect that, but why now once a man is no longer with us? Why now once a man cannot defend himself? Why is this now the perfect time to critique what he had to say? That to me is what I found, like, I don't agree with that. If you disagree with the person's content, if you disagree with his perspective, if you think it's misogynistic, fine. Like, okay. But why could we not have had this conversation when he was alive, when he was rising? Because I think if the real concern was the level of influence that this man was having on Black men, wouldn't these conversations been had months and months and months ago, maybe even years ago when he was blowing up? Wouldn't we have really rallied the troops and tried to have these conversations and dissect every single thing, and maybe even seek to have a conversation with him when he had different smoke shows, or maybe create different content that's at him? Like, why now when he cannot defend himself? When he can't come back and say, no, you're taking that out of context, or no, why now do we like to be judge and juror and critic? And to me, I just think that is horrible optics for Black women as a collective to go and look at a man who was, whether or not you agree or disagree, this man had a lot of influence. And there are people even internationally who were looking at him of all different ethnicities. He had influence across all different ethnicities. So it looks really bad, I think, for the collective of Black women to go and openly disrespect somebody who was deceased. Because think about it, if you're in that position, like, imagine you're a content creator, and then God forbid you pass away, then all of a sudden all these people that haven't really ever said anything do all these lives and post content, share news articles of things that are unverified or just false, do all these different things, and never thought to do that when you were alive, when you could actually face the smoke. Like, how would you feel? Like, I would feel bad about that. So that's what I'm saying. I would completely, or maybe could completely respect their position, or the position more of the collective of Black women, if all of this smoke and all these things were openly said. There was open critique. I mean, consistent critique, time and time again, when he was alive. But this is now all of a sudden everybody has everything to say. Now all of a sudden we're pulling out content, pulling out different video clips, when we know good and very well he did not want people pulling video clips like that without it being verified or anything longer than 5 minutes. Like, we know. But now that he's not here and that can't be regulated, now we take all those video clips and want to critique it. To me, that just seems, it just has really bad optics. And it makes us as Black women, the collective of Black women, look very disrespectful and very dishonoring. It really, 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 really does. And I'm saying, even if you don't agree, like I said, there's plenty of things I don't agree with. I do think there is a way to handle it in a way that doesn't create or lead to this larger gender war, this gender feud. And the way I think it's being handled by the collective, quite frankly, it's giving, not only is it adding fuel to the fire, it's creating more division. You have more women saying, okay, now you're going to be dangerous than ever. I'm going to go over here. So it's creating fuel to the fire. It's like, this has been the best promotion of SYSBM I've seen in a long time. The best free promotion. Black woman, the collective of Black women, freely promoting SYSBM, freely giving men, Black men in particular, a reason to go elsewhere to find partners. Because if we have, if the understanding is that Black women are seeing you as dangerous and positioning you and painting you as dangerous, and then taking a high value man, if you a high value Black man, whether you agree or disagree with him, taking the image that he represents and stomping on it as if it's a win. If that is the optics that are being given, then that's SYSBM, period. And maybe that's what women want. That's fine. If that's what women want, if that is what the collective wants, okay. I don't agree with that though. And this is why I wanted to say something. I do not think it is good to have all the smoke for somebody who's deceased. I'm like, if the passion was that fierce, and if the issues were that strong, and if the issues are that pressing, why could we not have had this maybe 2 years ago or even a year ago when he was rising, getting to the millions and having ton of influence, and he was having smoke shows, and he was even flying. He's been on plenty of channels smaller than his. I'm sure both of these women, perhaps, they have large followings. I'm sure that could have been a great conversation if he collaborated. I mean, look, he collaborated with Brittany Renner. So he was collaborating with people that he did not agree with. He was talking to people that he did not agree with because it sounded like he was willing to at least bridge a gap or seek a mutual understanding, or at the very least mutual respect. And the fact that that was not done by a woman who represented the collective of Black women, that's why I'm like, okay, I'm going to respectfully bow out of the situation because I don't think this is helpful. My position. But I'm also saying this so one, you guys can recognize where I'm coming from. Secondly, I'm saying this openly. I'm not going to throw my rock and hide the hand. So I'll be willing to talk to any of those ladies. I don't have nothing to hide, but I'm here to say I do not agree with those positions. I think those positions are damaging. I think they are causing misandry. I think they're feeding fear into Black women. I don't think they're based upon a full collective understanding of what's happening as far as domestic violence, what's happening as far as the bi-directionality of domestic violence, and what's happening as far as women oftentimes being used as a tool to promote misandry, and sometimes even drive a wedge, and we don't even really know it, or we're not even aware of it, or sometimes we are aware of it and we're getting paid. But I don't walk with that, period. So anyways, guys, if you're on here, get those likes up. Oh, I see. Okay, looks like I got Torraine Walker in back there. What's going on? Okay, so I'm gonna add you on in just a bit. I have a few things I want to get through. That I'm gonna add you on, and we're gonna open up this conversation. So shout out to Better You. I see Kyle. Let me see. Cowards throw rocks and hide their hands. They always bark the loudest when there can't be a response. Yeah, see, and I don't want to do that. So it's like, y'all hear my positions. And listen, like I said, when I say I don't have hate towards no one, I really don't. And I've talked to plenty of people where it's like, I may not agree with you, but we can respectfully disagree. So that's my stance. This is not an echo chamber. This is not a place where I'm only going to listen to you if I agree. It's like, I will talk to somebody if I don't understand, and I'll truly seek to understand where they're coming from, especially if I think, okay, maybe I could learn something. But if I think they're wrong, then they're wrong. And I don't want to be that channel, like I said, that throws a rock and hides the hand, or just I don't want to do that. I think that's a little passive aggressive. Shout out to Amos Stone. I hope I did not butcher that. For the 2 in the super chat. Much appreciated. So guys, those are my positions. So again, I wanted to talk about that until we got into this whole question of whether or not the Black man, if the passing of KevinSamuels is going to represent the end of the Black Manosphere. Again, I wanted to talk about that because just to kind of set a backdrop as to what's going on, what I just explained is the collective online response of Black women. Now, if you guys think I'm wrong, let me know. Of course, this is not all Black women. I'm sure there's plenty of those out there who don't agree with that. Maybe I can represent them. But the general collective response of Black women is what I just described. And this is why there's some celebratory or celebrating going on, if you will. Because I think there's some women who are thinking, oh, now that he's gone, we're not going to have to deal with that anymore. And my personal feeling is that this is just the beginning. But before I get into it, it looks like I do have a special guest back there. I want to, first of all, you guys, if you're on here, get those likes up first off. Get those likes up. Also, show support to the show if you want to. Like I said, you can find me on Cash App or Venmo, Shay Sharday. What I'm going to do is, okay. Let's see. Okay. So what I'm gonna do, guys, if you're on here, like I said, show some love and support. I'm going to, looks like I'm gonna bring the guest on. And then probably what I'll do, have a quick break, and then we'll get into the questions. So, okay, let me get you on there. Hey, how's it going?
Hey, Shays, how you doing?
It's good. Good to have you here.
No, it's good to be here. I had some tech issues, so I'm doing it through my phone today.
Oh, no worries. Yeah, so I don't know how much you caught, but like I said, I was just trying to give my stance on a few different things I saw really over the last 24 hours. I do want to take this portion of the show to really focus, kind of dig in on this question on whether or not, you know, Kevin Samuels passing is going to represent the end of the Black Manosphere and any other things that you have. But I wanted to make sure I touched upon the different pervading ideas I see being represented by Black women and make it clear that I am not in agreement with that. I am in agreement with Black women creating and doing things that are going to help us, but I think that should be done in collaboration with men, with healthy alliances, with mutual respect, and not disconnected or distinctive from men. And I find that these narratives that are being promoted, oftentimes I think continue to drive a wedge, and that isn't healthy.
Yeah, I caught that part of it, and I'm glad you said those things. First, I want to say before I start, you know, rest in peace to the brother Kevin Samuels.
Mm-hmm.
It's always, you know, a tragedy when somebody dies that young. You know, you're not supposed to leave here from an event like that at 56 years old.
Yeah.
You know, that's sort of a new thing. As far as the rest of it, I've been pretty vocal over the past weekend since I heard about his passing, and I've been seeing a lot of takes, both, you know, pro and con against the man. And I gotta say that while very few things shocked me at this point, I have to say I was really shocked at the way a lot of people were rejoicing in this man's death. I can understand not liking what somebody has to say. I can understand, you know, be strongly opposed to what somebody says or their point of view. But the way people were celebrating his death like he was some sort of predator, which is crazy to me. And all he has is his opinion. That was wild.
Oh, that's all he had.
Say again?
No. I'm just saying I agree. That's literally all he had was an opinion. That's all he had.
Yeah. You know, just watching that and just seeing that online was just insane to me. And what that shows me is the lack of compassion and the lack of care we have towards ourselves as a people, and it shows the severe disconnect between Black men and Black women. Now, to be fair, I don't think that this is something that's endemic between all Black people and all Black couples. But I know a lot of the conversation that's being driven around Black men and Black women is being driven by people who have a strong dislike of Black men, and a lot of what you're seeing is the manifestation of that, I think. Like I had a conversation with somebody today, where if you get out of these online forums and you get off of these platforms, a lot of the conversations between Black men and women are a lot more even-handed than you see online. The danger is that the people who are running these conversations are people who work, and I always say this, they work in media, they work in the legal profession, they work in academia especially. And if these people have this much vitriol for a Black man who was really trying to bring Black men and Black women together and telling them both to step their game up, what does that say about the rest of us? Because these are the people that policymakers listen to. These are the people who influence policy that affects Black men and Black women who are outside of these circles. I think that's extremely dangerous, and that's very sad.
Bingo. And that's what I was alluding to. That's why I wanted to make it clear. I was like, hey, I don't agree with the at the very least collective online stance of Black women because they're misandrous, period. And you know, oftentimes what I hear is, you know, you hear a story, a really sad story, which is just like, yeah, no one at the end of the day wants to undermine, the tragedy of that story. Like, for example, when I was listening to Paris Milan one, and the majority of the live was just listening to a young girl who had been abused by her stepdad. And it's like, yeah, no one out there is saying that is not important. That's incredibly important. And also, by the way, what does this have to do with Kevin Samuels? He would never have promoted a 40-year-old man being at home, not working, and then doing things with a stepdaughter. That's not what he was. This is a conversation about high value, but I'm like, the way these things are artfully used to kind of create this whole, or to drive emotions and to drive feelings that and again, it just leads back to this misandrous discussion. I'm just like, this is not, I don't see this being helpful. If the goal is to help Black, I'm speaking at least for the female side, if the goal is to help Black women, the way to do that is to not pump them with bad or biased conceptions about men or Black men. The way to do that is to not essentially create them as their own separate group where they're having to defend themselves and talking about creating their own militias and stuff like that. Which is like, that is not the way to do it. So that's why I'm like, I don't do that. This goes to a point that I talk about a lot when we have these conversations. A lot of the people who are driving this conversation are people who are dealing with unresolved trauma, and the trauma is very valid. I mean, we can't deny the fact that there are a lot of, Black young boys, Black women, Black girls, Black gender nonconforming people who have dealt with horrible trauma, either in the home or at the hands of, predators around their families, or people who just victimized them up until the point where they were strong enough to get away from that. Right. That's a very real trauma, and that trauma is very valid, and it needs to be dealt with. But a lot of people either don't have the resources, or they don't have access to get therapy, or they haven't really worked through a lot of those horrific things that have happened to them. But they have social media. And I kind of understand it, because social media is sort of like a free way for people to vent through their pain and their anger, and anything that looks like something that triggered them, or anything that reminds them of the sort of men that they dealt with or who were predators towards them, they're going to automatically react to. And I think that's what you're seeing as a trauma response. I get that. And I understand. And that trauma response is valid. But what is not valid is when these people are able to go into the academy and are able to capitalize off the deaths of Black men, but you demonize the same Black men you're trying to get money off of. And you're also trying to demonize all Black men because of a few predators, to the point where somebody with a different opinion than you about relationships and dating and Black women automatically is a predator to you. That's extremely dangerous. And here's the other thing about that. The people who get these, you can laugh it off and say that it's a joke or it doesn't really mean anything. But the people who do this, again, a lot of them work in the academy. A lot of these people are sit in rooms to develop policy for Black boys. They sit around and they talk about these things with white people, and they talk about with very powerful people. So if these white people who are powerful talk to feel this way about Black men and boys, what kind of policy do you think is going to come out of that when they only listen to those Black people? That's bingo. And I think you hit the nail on the head when you hit on trauma response. And again, I've seen this so often when I see this conversation being driven by really horrible situation, which is just like, yeah, no one out here is ever trying to paint a scenario where it's like, that's okay. I mean, you do have the crazies. Of course, there's always those extremist crazies in the men and the women's side. Let's just be honest. But most average people is just like, yeah, of course they're not trying to promote abuse, but how is this now painted as the everyday collective experience of everyone in the Black community? And also, by the way, where I get really pissed off is when this is given as a reason to put Black women in even more dangerous situations through, i.e. divest, right? Divest because the Black men in the Black community are horrible. And then they take all that trauma and then get themselves a bottom shelf brat, as I think is the term they use. They take that trauma and get themselves a white guy or a non-Black guy who is just as dangerous, if not more dangerous, because their trauma and their hatred was the thing that motivated them. And they weren't motivated by love. They weren't motivated by healthiness. They were motivated by fear. And anytime fear is what's driving you, you're going to end up in a you're going to end up in a bad scenario. And I'm thinking, how many divestiture disasters have we seen in the last year, men and women? I mean, you seem to have men doing it too, but I hear this message primarily driven by women as a better option, and they like to pretend that they don't live in a society where, again, sundown town it still exists. They don't live in a society where racism is still alive and well. I don't care how you want to say it's overt, covert, depending upon where you live, is going to maybe inform your understanding of it. But you act like that's not a thing. That's not a factor.
Yeah. Well, like, again, me and you have talked about this too. I look at divesting as sort of like a front for a lot of other things. If you look at a lot of the conversation around divesting online, there may be one or two Black women, very attractive Black women, who either have boyfriends who play in professional sports, or they're very successful businessmen, or they're white dudes who are, to use Kevin Samuels' term, they're high value white men.
Yeah.
The percentage of Black men, the percentage of Black women who are able to achieve getting with a white man like that is maybe 0.1%.
Right, very low, very
and
low.
That's the advertising that a lot of divestors use to try to say that it's okay to try to completely disassociate yourself from Black men and go over there. Yeah. But like I've said before, the majority of divestors are not going to be in the same room with those guys in the first place.
No.
And again, I'm not going to be as blunt as Kevin was, but I'm going to say a lot of them are hiding behind cartoon avies and celebrity pictures for a reason.
Right.
Make of that what you will.
No.
You can't divest from something that's not invested in you in the first place. So that's the first part of that. The second part of that is, you're right. It is extremely dangerous to think that because you had one or two people who are toxic, or you had a couple of traumatic experiences, that you should automatically remove yourself from all Black men. And a lot of times they're not talking about removing themselves from just Black men. They're talking about completely removing themselves from the Black community. And if you are a Black person in America, especially if you are a Black woman, it is the height of insanity to think you can remove yourself from a community that will give you the skill set to try to survive in America and go over there with those people and think you're going to save you. You are setting yourself up for disaster. You're setting your children up for disaster. Outside of what you think about Kevin Samuels or what do you think about the Black Manosphere, that's just foolish.
Right. And I always see it because I saw a rebuttal that Kevin Samuels had said that kids lie. And that's okay to believe that, and it's like, yeah, kids do lie. they use that whole example where he's talking to the mom. I don't know if you saw he's talking to the mom, and he's talking about, okay, if your kid made an allegation that I abused, what would you do? And then she's like, I would leave. And then he's just like, well, you would just leave? And then she's like, yeah, I got it to protect the kids. And then what he was getting at was just like the fact that there was no discussion, there was no understanding, there was not even an attempt to try to at least understand my perspective before you just left, could be considered misandrous. And I do understand how that could have been taken out of context, but I do also want people to understand it's like, yeah, there is a possibility too that there are horrible, really, really dangerous men out there, and there are also kids sometimes who are young and they do things, and so it's like, what he was basically trying to say is, please, first of all, do your due diligence. Of course, put yourself in a position or put your kids in a position where they need to be safe, but don't just take what a young kid said of it for face value and don't do any due diligence. Because of course, I have friends where they're, they told stuff to their parents or their mom, and they're just like, no, you're lying. And they dismissed it, and that is incredibly damaging.
Yeah, and I get that, and I saw that. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I didn't see the full clip, but I've seen it floating around, but I haven't had time to sit there and watch it. But I think what has to happen is there has to be context to every conversation you have. I've seen a lot of things where people take 3-second clips or 4-second clips or 10-second clips of something he said, and they chop it up, and this comes from videos that I've actually sat and watched the whole 2 hours of. And I can tell that they've taken 1 or 2 bits and pieces and shaped it in a way to make it seem like he was dogging all Black women or this sort of thing. In a space of a conversation, in the space of natural conversation, you're going to say certain things, then you work it around, and then you get to your ultimate point. Because social media is so immediate and because it's so microwave, you can take a 3 or 4 second snippet of something and make it say whatever you want. That's dangerous. Right. And I understand that, but I'm coming back to my main concern is whether you agree with Kevin Samuels or not, whether you listen to his content or not, whether you liked him as a person or not. It's insane to me to see Black people celebrating this man the way celebrating this man's death.
Oh, that was the first time I think I really started to see the depths of evil wicked, like demonic, straight up demonic energy, however you want to put it, motivating these conversations. Because I'm just like, there is no way you can sit here and tell me in your white mind that you are celebrating the early demise of a well-respected figure, whether or not you like him. He was trending on Twitter all day in the United States, like almost all day. I mean, he has more followers than you know, mega church pastors. So love him or hate him, he is well loved and respected by both men and women, by the way, not just men. There are plenty of women out there who are just like, I didn't maybe like your tone, or I didn't like this, but after I listened to you, helped change my marriage. You helped change my life. I've gotten back with my, so it's like, this is men and women. So it looks like we lost him for a second. Shout out to Obsidian in the building. Okay, looks like he got, okay, he's back there. So no worries. Yeah. So like I said, I agree that was a thing that honestly it was disturbing. And I'm like, the optics, like I said, are horrible. First of all, like a black woman, any black woman over here who are complaining about men going abroad or dating and marrying out, they just gave the collective of black men, right, a reason to SYSBM based upon this horrible behavior that has been displayed online by women and not really checked. They have given the collective of black men the reason to SYSBM. If this goes unchecked, if we just act like this isn't a big deal, they have basically showed men, you have our blessing to go SYSBM because we don't even care about the high value among you. That's what this is in our actions portraying. And I don't even know if some of us are aware of it. That's why I was just like, I don't agree with this. I do not agree with the collective response.
Well, first of all, I want to say I really don't think it's actually a collective response. Like online, I said earlier. But you know what? Even online, it's not really a collective response because if you look around, there's a lot of women who work in media. There's a couple of sisters who work for WSB2 in Atlanta who said that they knew Kevin Samuels and they knew him in high school through college, and they said he was always a really solid dude. And you see a lot of celebrities because people forget he was an image consultant before he started doing this. And you see a lot of celebrities, men and women, black men and black women, who saying they worked with him and they had a lot of respect for him and everything, and they're wishing him well. I think when you're talking about the collective, we have to remember that it's a very small group of black women. It's not the majority of black women. It's just a small but influential group of black women. I think the focus has to be on the fact that a lot of the women who you see rejoicing in his death are people with, a lot of these women have contracts with to do stripping content with like HBO. They have content deals with Netflix. A couple of them are professors. There was a professor at Carnegie Mellon, actually. I don't have her name in front of me. She basically made a slanderous statement online talking about that he was broke and he was, they didn't have a way to bury him. When the people I saw that. Yeah. But see, the thing about it, his family has a spokesperson. His spokesperson has already said that anything coming from all these other outlets that are connected to the family, nobody has any solid evidence. But this is a professor of linguistics at Carnegie Mellon, a black woman. She's not an American black woman, but she's a black woman, saying this sort of stuff about a black man. And she can say this without any sort of censure. Now think about that. If that, like I said, if she's able to do that with no fear of any kind of censure, what does that say about Carnegie Mellon? And what does that say about our status in the black community as far as like in academia when you can do that? If you say that about any other group of men, if you say anything hateful about she has a history of saying hateful things about black Americans. If you say that about any other group, you will not have a job by the day tomorrow. You're either going to write a groveling apology note or you're going to be looking for another job.
Right.
That's what I think that does. I think what it says is that black men and black women who care about black men and black communities have to start pushing back hard against these people, because if not, they're in positions of influence to be able to completely destroy the rest of us. Right.
And again, that's why when I use the term, I hope what you say is true, that like it's really a small group that's influential, but not the majority. But I listen to some of the content creators. I mentioned two that I listened to recently, but there's other ones that have said that they represent the collective of black women, and this is their stance. So that's why I was just like, I don't agree with this, but I hope what you said is right, that this is maybe a particular collective, but that there is a other very, very large collective that don't agree with this. And we do know, like I said, there's women of all ethnicities who support Kevin Samuels, so it's there, but at the end of the day, you are absolutely right that if this goes unchecked, or if the narrative that's put out there, at the very least online, is that this is how we deal with things, this is how Black folks deal with things, whatever, that's a very dangerous shut up. So anyways, I wanted to, because I didn't want to kind of get into the topic. I was going to have a few minutes to call in. Mr. Obsidian, if you have time, feel free to call in, because I didn't want to really dig deeply into this question of what does this mean for the manosphere. So before we get into that, I'm gonna take a little break, Mr. Walker. If you need to grab some water or anything, I'm gonna have like maybe a 2-3 minute little commercial break. But guys, if you're on here, first of all, hit that like button. Also show support to the show. Guys, show support to your favorite content creators. We're just talking a little bit about KevinSamuels for those of you guys who are hopping on here. And then I want to focus a little bit on what does this mean? What does his passing mean for the Black Manosphere? That's what we're going to get into. But before we get into that, I'm going to have a little bit of a commercial break. And then we'll go right into the questions. Okay. Okay, I think I hit my mute button for a second.
Yeah, your mouth is moving.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Yeah, so I wanted to open up just a few minutes to have some callers. Mr. Obsidian, if you're there, feel free to call in. It looks like we got him. Okay. What we got? Hey, how's it going?
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good.
And Mr. Walker, nice to make your acquaintance.
My pleasure, brother. Good to meet yours.
Are you a mental health professional by chance?
I am not. I'm a journalist and a writer and a videographer.
The way that you spoke, it gave me the impression that you was a mental health professional. I was about to say when you talk.
Sometimes I feel like someone online, but no, I'm not.
Well, you're very knowledgeable and very erudite, and looking forward to a very good discussion.
Well, thank you, brother. Appreciate that.
Yeah, so I wanted to, I wanted to talk a little bit about this whole topic of whether or not the early passing of Kevin Samuels is going to represent the end of the Black Manosphere. And first of all, thank you for calling in, Mr. Obsidian, because I'm sure you're going to have a lot to say on this topic. But
you know, you're one of my favorite ladies.
Yeah. But I wanted to address this because, again, speaking back to the collective, I know we were going back and forth, Mr. Walker, as to whether or not this is all Black women or a particular collective, but either way, it is a certain group of Black women who are celebrating his passing. I think largely because they think this is going to mean the end of what he represented, right? The end of the way they call it, the end of the misogynoir, the misogyny, the woman hating, all that kind of different stuff. They're celebrating it as if this means that this is not going to happen anymore, or this is now long gone. And I've even seen some, because there's a whole tarot card reading thing I saw being thrown around on the health of the Black Manosphere, where it was essentially through tarot cards, right? It was essentially, what's the word? It was saying that the manosphere is going to fail. I don't know how else to put it. That's kind of like there's going to be a reckoning. I'll have to send it to you. You can check it out. There's going to be
I want to check it out. Yeah. Okay, so we'll deal with the occult metaphysical end of it. I happen to know a little bit about that, but okay.
So they got cards for the manosphere, but not for white supremacy. All right.
Right. Yeah. But okay. So dealing with the question on the floor about is this the end of the Black Manosphere? Far from it. The late great scholar Dr. John Henrik Clarke once famously said, "You buried a man and you continue to fight." So no, it's only beginning. After September 11th happened, I remember reading a headline, and I think it was Israelis or somebody, and they said that we're all Americans now. After the fall of our good friend and brother, I affectionately refer to him as Saint Kevin. A brother on Facebook wrote on my Facebook wall, "We're all Kevin Samuels now." And I think that's the appropriate way to look at it. We all can take a little piece of Kevin Samuels with us. I think that's what the appropriate response for every Black man is, to take a piece of Kevin Samuels. You don't have to do everything he did. He wouldn't want you to do everything he did. Just take a piece of whatever works with you and run with it. And that's the response. With regard to the ladies, these Johnny Come Lately critics who for 2 years weren't heard from. I was saying this the other day off the mic. So I'm very familiar with actual card-carrying Black feminists. If you go back through my catalog, if you will, over the past 7 years, quite a few notable figures from my rogues gallery are card-carrying Black feminists. And they have been very quiet over the past 2 years with Kevin's meteoric rise.
Yes.
And that fascinated me, because these are people who, before Kevin came along, I mean, they were running all over the internet. These were social media professional butterflies. And they were very quiet during Kevin's reign, so to speak. But, as soon as the word gets out that he is no more, here they come out the woodwork. And I happen to know quite a few of these ladies, and I'm here to tell you, they're paper tigers. They're cowards. They love sycophants, particularly black male sycophants who, kiss up behind them, brown nosing them. They don't have the temerity to go man on man. These are people, Kevin would, kind of clown certain women. I'm a PhD. These are women that are highly educated, went to some of the best universities in the country. Many of them work in the intellectual ghettos of the Black Studies departments, known as Black Studies and gender studies and all the rest of it. Professional Black feminist types, and they have so much to say to their amen corners, but they would never go mano a mano with Kevin. Meanwhile, Kevin actually had sit downs with Nicki Minaj, with Brittany Renner, with Tommy Lee. These are the type of sisters that, no heat, no judgment, but they would be considered, as LL Cool J once famously said back in the day, around the way girls. I was like, okay, where are the educated professional sisters that could put it on the wood and make an articulate argument against Kevin in real time? Where are they? For 2 years, they've been silent. I know where they are. They're hiding out in the corner over there because they know that they can't out debate Kevin. They know it. And that's the reason why they're coming out now when the man is dead, because they know that he can't defend himself. And it's unconscionable. And you asked me a question about these when I got started in the Black Manosphere, one of the founding fathers, one of the three kings of the Black Manosphere 2.0, well, I got started because I got tired of what I called the loudest voices in the room. Black women who have outsized influence. They have influence in the media. They have influence in academia. They have influence in entertainment. And they have been able to shape and mold the narrative of black male-female relations for decades. Unchallenged, unquestioned. I got tired of it. And I decided to set out and do what I could. And I was so glad when Kevin came along, because I said, finally, we got a big bat now. Yeah, I used to play baseball. We got a big bat. Good. Now we got a big bat. So, these lovely ladies have never gone head to head, because a lot of people would say, Kevin, you just basically got, average at best women or hood rats or whatever. You never have the professional women come on. And I used to say, you're right. Where are these ladies who have so much to say about misogynoir, about this and that? Where are they now? They never came out of the woodwork. And probably the closest thing we have is Kendra G, a Hampton University graduate. Yeah. And we all saw how that interaction.
Fair point.
So these lovely ladies, they know who to mess with and who not to mess with. If you're a black man and see what Kevin teaches all of us brothers, and we need to study him well. What Kevin teaches us is, if you're a brother and you got your sugar honey iced tea together, these sisters know not to mess with you. Like there's a lovely lady in the chat room who says that Obsidian's never been to college. Everybody knows that I'm an autodidact polymath. Everybody knows that. That's not a hidden secret. And as a matter of fact, I often eat card-carrying black feminists for lunch. If they don't believe me, you can check on my channel right now, where me and one Miss Nicole Young, a lovely lady, University of Pennsylvania graduate, and you can make your own judgment. So,
absolutely, and I think you hit the nail on the head of pointing out, which I had done a few minutes ago before you called on, of how all of a sudden there is a large rally cry among black women who have all kinds of things to say about his content after he's not here to defend himself. And that to me is what I took strong issue with. I would be much more likely to listen to, or at least try to respect, even if I don't understand, but respect the opinions, if these conversations were being had while he was alive and also had created a platform to do it. You all mentioned multiple women that he had spoken to that he probably didn't agree with, like for sure didn't agree with, that he was willing to engage with. So I'm like, the fact that now that he's not here, then we can go back and pull videos from like 2 years ago,
right,
pull things out of context, use snippets and stuff that like we already know he had a pretty strict policy about his videos. Now they're just using it freely. Like it just, to me, it really makes us look bad. If I'm being honest.
With regard to Kevin's digital estate, and that is what it is. It's part of his estate. I hope, you know, I was just talking about this. Me and Ms. Brown Sugar was talking about this earlier today, and she made a really powerful point. She said the same thing you said, that black folk, for some reason, think that the intellectual property of other black folk somehow belongs to all of them, and they can use it anytime that they want, any way that they want. Wrong. Kevin's image and likeness and very name is subject now to being copyrighted and trademarked by his family, and you can run into some serious legal trouble for misusing and misappropriating it. I hope people understand that. There are his estate is being managed as we speak, and it could very well result in some. First of all, the official legal spokesman for the family of Kevin Samuels has already begun putting cases on major media organizations and individuals in social media for defaming Kevin. So everybody needs to know that. I hope you're aware of that.
DennisSpurling?
Yeah, the cases are starting to be put on him.
No, that's a real thing. I've been hearing whispers of that, but yeah, his estate is being managed right now by his family and a very competent attorney. And this brother is, I think he was laying low for a minute, but once he saw some of the backlash and some of the vitriol, he just said, if y'all want to go to war, we're going to go to war. And it's happening.
Yep, absolutely. So that's going to be interesting. That's going to be interesting because that, like I said, that was the first thing for me where I'm just like, no, this isn't even necessarily, I think this is more about, okay, what does Kevin Samuels represent? What does Kevin Samuels represent? And if what he represented, right, was the image of black men, really something that I was actually trying to be positive for the community. Like, I mean, for example, we rarely talk about the fact that Kevin Samuels had more strict and stringent, I think, ideals on black men than even black women. He was telling black men, you shouldn't even really be in a relationship if you can't pay for 100% of things. He was advocating for black men being everything that women complain that men aren't. He was advocating for that. And they still, even with that, still found a reason to completely disrespect the image. And I'm just like, do we not understand how this is a horrible reflection on whether you want to call it the community, at the very least black women?
It's wild to me. I'm sorry, go ahead, sister. I apologize.
No, you can go.
No, it's funny how, you know, people forget Kevin had that channel for what, 4.5 years? The first maybe 3 years he spoke almost exclusively to men. You know, if you look at his early channels, his early channel was kind of like every other YouTube vlogger. He was talking about dress and style and clothing and everything. He was going into his professional thing. After maybe like a year and a half, you started seeing him doing like consultations online, and those consultations moved into sort of like giving advice to black men. And a lot of that advice for like the first 2 years was really harsh advice to some of them brothers. I mean, overweight, brothers who didn't have jobs or who were like slacking. It was, but here's the thing about that. Men, and it's something I think a lot of women don't get. When men really care about other men, there's no sugarcoating of what they're saying. They get you with the hard, brutal, honest truth. If men, maybe you could say it, maybe it's a cultural thing, but with black men, if black men really care about you, they're gonna hit you with the raw, unvarnished truth. And he was hitting brothers with that. All he did was transfer that same energy over to women, and a lot of them are not used to that because they're so used to being like coddled and that sort of thing when it comes to talking about relationships and dating. He wasn't doing that, and that's, I think, was the shock value of that. So as far as what you're saying, I think that's part of the reason why there was so much hostility towards him from some people. And also, a lot of people are talking about him because after he's dead, because they knew if he was alive, there was no way they were going to be able to get away with some of the things they're saying. That's the other part of it too. So it really comes down to a lot of cowardice, fear and cowardice.
Right. Absolutely. And I'm like, that makes a lot of black women look bad, because like I said, even if, you know, the position, as you put it, which I hope is true, right? It's only a small group of women who feel this way, but they're very influential. Still, that influence, right? The women who are of influence, who are showing this behavior, making us look horrible. Optics suck. I'm just like, again, you, without knowing it, are literally promoting SYSBM. You have just given every Black man of influence a reason to SYSBM, just based upon the way that you are treating someone who was pushing for a high value, right? Pushing for the lifestyle that you say you want, pushing for Black men and Black women coming together. That's what he was doing. He was trying to give you what you want. Yeah. But even with that, like you trample his image was essentially that's his value. That's his legacy. You're trampling the very thing that essentially made his career what it is. And you don't think that's going to reflect badly on the way that we're perceived? Like,
a lot of people don't care, and a lot of people are in their feelings. You know, they're offended by what he said, but they're not really taking into the full context of what he was trying to get at. You know, they weren't looking at the big picture of what he was trying to do. And really what he was trying to do was show that Black men can be upstanding, we can be solid, we can dress well, we can smell good. It's the way our grandfathers and fathers used to always be. You know, but really what he was a throwback to a lot of that old school wisdom where, like, I don't care if it was Jim Crow or if it was the dirty deep South. You know, a Black man was not going to come out the house without a suit and tie on or some suspenders or a hat or something like that. That's what that comes from. We've lost a lot of that in the early 80s and 90s because we lost a lot of Black male mentors, which is another thing why these people are out of pocket too, is because through the prison industrial complex or through crack or through music influencing people, we've lost a lot of male mentors. So there's a lot of young men and young women out here with no direction trying to raise themselves. And you got 15-year-olds who are trying to raise, 8-year-olds. You got 18-year-olds out here with like 35-year-old grandmamas. So it's like all this stuff is going on, as well as irresponsible young Black boys. So you got a mass of people out here who are just with no direction. So when somebody like a Kevin Samuels comes in, he's going to pull a lot of people in because a lot of them really don't really understand that what they want is a father figure. What they want is somebody who's a male mentor and an influence. And living in the society that we live in, you also have to see the flip side of that is that a lot of people, a strong Black male figure who stands on the square is a direct threat to a lot of things America has in store. So of course there's going to be pushback.
That's absolutely true. Real quick, I did want to acknowledge a super chat that came through. Shout out to Mr. Gino. It says, "We need your voice." Appreciate the love and support, guys. If you're here, get those likes up. Get those likes up. And like I said, if I get some more, I saw some calls in the background, guys. If I get some more support, I will be happy to bring you guys on. Otherwise, I will keep the panel nice and light today. What you got, Kevin C? I know you've been quiet there.
Hey, how's everybody doing?
Hey.
Good.
Hey, it's good to see everybody. Oh man, we talked earlier, so it's good to see you again.
Hey, what's going on, Kevin?
Yeah. Hey, just real quick. Well, obviously I got talking points, but interesting enough, if you had to sum up Kevin Samuels and his work and what he was trying to do and how people related to it, the men kind of accepted it and like, okay, you know what, we're going to take this and be better men. And then it's almost as if the women took that as like, okay, well, we can't accept criticism and we're just going to reject it. And when you have a group of people who feel that way about something, even when it's constructive, because men see it as constructive. All right, that's why he was able to talk to men and be harsh. And even one of his good friends, made a video and he was like, "Hey, these are the talking points that he gave to men, and they were really harsh." He ran down the list, and it was brutal. And if you're that type of man, you were like, "Ooh, I got a lot of work to do." But if you were tracking, you're like, "Okay, I'm already done that. I'm tracking, and I'm moving in the right direction." All right. So what comes out of this and what it looks like to men who are actually trying to do and live up to the standard that, if you want to call it that, what Kevin Samuels set is that, well, we have a group of women that can't take criticism. And I'm going to tell you what men are going to do. We aren't going to fight or argue or tussle with women. All right. The most we'll do is maybe, kind of go back and forth a little bit in the comments. But as far as writing emails and doing protests and getting online and all this other stuff, the one thing that men do is if we don't want a situation that we don't want to deal with, we just disengage. We literally disengage. That's worse for women.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah, and not just women. We're talking about women, children, the elderly, the most unprotected in our society. You can't run around talking about how unprotected, neglected, and disrespected you are, and then run the men off. The ones who are actually going to be doing all of that work, doing all the heavy lifting. I'm telling you, if men feel that way as a collective, this is just kind of how I think, and probably like a lot of other guys think, and they're not really just voicing it. So that's why these spaces are important, so we can have these conversations. But men just disengage. We're not going to, we're not going to, fight back or fight back in the conventional way that women think that we're going to fight back. we're just going to look at you and go, you know what? No, thanks, but no thanks. Not interested. To include if you have unresolved trauma. That's the other issue. So you, sir, you pointed to this, and I forget your name. Can you give me a reminder, please? The guest? Yes. Yeah, Torraine. Yeah, Mr. Walker. Yeah, so like you pointed to that. You pointed to the, the trauma and all this other stuff. We get it. There's a whole lot of trauma associated with either your childhood or some of the, past relationships, all that stuff, this, that, and the third. Let me tell you something when it comes to that. All right. And Alcidian's right. You did kind of come off a little bit like a, psycho, analyst and somebody who knows something about the field. And that's great. But men aren't going to take that time to psychoanalyze anything. They're going to be like, you know what? Oh, you got some trauma that you hadn't dealt with. Again, I'm disengaging. Come back to me when you got it fixed, because I got stuff I got to do. I got to work on my personal improvement. I got to work on my self-development. I got to get this money. I got other things I got to do, and I don't have time to fix you. If you want to come back and see me when you're fixed, maybe 2 or 3 years later, and that's if I'm available, by the way. All right, maybe we can have a discussion. Like, that's how men are going to deal with this. So this is a wake-up call to people who are dealing with, trauma. That's for the men and the women. All right. I know that, and that's not to discount anything that somebody's gone through. We don't want to minimize that. But we have to, as a group, get to a point where we're comfortable dealing with that. Now, in mainstream society, they're actually starting to make that more and more of a not a negative stigma, and that's great. But still, even as a collective with Black folks, we're probably the least we're the most resistant group to that, only because we already have enough stigmas as it is. All right, that's one of the issues as it relates to that. So I just kind of want to throw that out there and just have people think about that. I'll take a break because I know somebody wants to respond to that.
No, I think I'll say this. What you said about, I think the fact that Kevin Samuels his willingness to engage shows that he actually did care and love is completely and totally right, because I was actually having this conversation with my husband where he was like, what women don't understand is that he was willing to do it, and he was the best they're going to get. He was the best that they're going to get. He was willing to sit every single day or every single week and talk to these women time and time again, women who were being disrespectful, talking over him, arguing with him. He was willing to do it. Most men are not willing to do it, and they won't. They will simply walk away. And I even saw comments in there that said, these women, they're complaining, and they don't understand that indifference is that's the worst place you can get. And you're already seeing some men do it. You're already seeing them silently go. Some of them, will promote SYSBM. Some of them, they won't even engage. They'll just go abroad.
Yeah. Again, my wife is from, and this is no disrespect to Black women. My wife is Afro-Latina. So, and I'll be honest with you, she brings something a little bit different that, and I didn't go out looking for it. It just happened. It was just, I was, out doing some work. We had kind of, we met, and then, she kind of slipped me a little, flirtatious signal. And literally she did it one time and one time only. And it was so subtle, I completely missed it. And then my buddy said, hey, go back and talk to her. And I took it from there. Like, literally. And that's not, to disregard that we don't have good women here. We absolutely do. It's just, that's how it worked out. So men are going to meet wherever they meet that right person. That's where they're gonna link up.
Right.
All right. And so that thing about people going live and then taking stuff down, I see that as some kind of chicanery that I can't work with. Look, if you can't stand on your work and put it up there and leave it up there for people to review and critique, then I'm questioning all of that. All right. So for somebody, you said, you watched something over the weekend, some young lady goes live, she says some stuff. Hey, get ready, it's coming. Okay, now you can't stand on that. So why? Why can't you stand on your work? Why can't you back that up? Why can't you, support that with some statistics, facts, and this whole thing that men are going to be doing? And which, by the way, that's not the other thing. I think one of the first things I said when I came to you when I engaged with you initially, when I first kind of was introduced to you, is that not all Black men, and everything's painted as okay. Well, all Black men are going to do this. Look, people who follow Kevin Samuels or anybody else in the manosphere, we're not running around here trying to be a Black version of Elliot Rogers. That's not what we are.
Right.
And the guy and the people who are doing that are going to people who are going to do that anyway, with or without any influence from anybody else. That's really how that works. So that whole thing about Black men being violent and molesters and all this other stuff and how they took, the words and the work and then twisted it and distorted it and then didn't even try to ask for clarification or even get it from him while he was here. as far as I'm concerned, if you want to talk about it now, I can't even listen to what you're talking about because you had your chance. You know, he opened it up for discussion. You could have people with serious platforms or moderately serious platforms could have invited him on. They didn't challenge him in any way. He allowed you to call in. You did a whole bunch of other stuff.
Yeah.
You let it go, and now you want to show up and just say all of this stuff. And it really, I don't get excited about a whole lot because I understand the systemic issues that are already on us. But the thing that bothers me is when it comes from our own group, when it comes from inside our own group. And I expect it from everybody else. I absolutely do. I expect everything that we get from anybody else who's not, I call, anybody who's not black or non-black, as I like to refer to them. I expect all the vitriol, the stereotypes, the generalizations, all this other stuff. But what I do not expect and what I cannot have is all that negative stuff, being thrown at us from the people within our own group. Because if we can't get past that and understand that a lot of that, comes from these negative outside influences, and then we take that and internalize it and start doing it ourselves, we're actually doing the work of the people who are trying to oppress us. We're actually doing the work of the people who are trying to destroy us. We're actually doing the work of the people who are actually trying to keep us separate. And this whole gender divide thing, I can tell you this, and it's like I said, if we don't get on track and get back together and do what we're supposed to do as men and women, husbands and wives, mothers and fathers, and a community, then there's going to be a group of people that will not survive this. All right. We got too many things pushing against us to actually see us fail. And if you're not paying attention to that, one of the things I like to throw out is we're going to be broke by 2053. That's what the economists say. That is a median black wealth. Now, everybody's not going to be in the street. But if you don't understand that and you don't see that these things are very important, and you're worried about somebody telling you to lose weight to be better, or you're worried about somebody telling you, hey, you know what, you need to actually focus on being a better man, and then when you get your responsibility put in front of you, you accept that responsibility and you push forward with it and you do what you're supposed to do, and then you're not going to be that guy that survives 2053. You see what I'm saying? I'll go ahead and take a break.
Absolutely. Real quick shout out to Renzo Jones with the 5. I see hello Shay and guest. Watch the movie The Ugly Truth with Gerald Butler in it. It's the exact same blueprint as Kevin himself.
That's a really good movie.
Okay, I haven't seen that movie.
I remember that movie.
Yeah, it didn't really do that well. It was a rom-com, but basically Gerald Butler plays a dude on YouTube who gets a TV show with a major network. It's a rom-com, but but if you look at the platform of that, it's kind of like a precursor to what Kevin Samuels did, like YouTube and stuff like that. Came out like 2005 or something.
Oh, interesting. Okay, I have to check that out. Thank you for the support, guys. If you're on here, get those likes up. Share some support. Show some support on Cash App or Venmo. Shay. Also, super chats are open. Y'all, please be nice to the guests. I'm just looking over here and seeing people. If y'all got something to say, I had a call in. So if y'all had something to say, you could have called in. Please be respectful, okay? I'm seeing y'all challenges. Listen.
I hope I didn't bring him over from Twitter. I apologize if I did.
Nah, that could have been me. But no, anyways, I think you made some great points, Kevin C. I mean, I think everybody here is in agreement pretty much with the fact that we would have maybe even been willing, and I bet you Kevin Samuels, all these detractors, especially those with larger platforms, would have happily, gladly spoken to these women, and at the very least tried to come to an alliance, because that's what he was trying to do. I legitimately feel like he was trying to help build a bridge and stop, or try to at least get some traction in this gender war that we see being fueled. And it's just so crazy that, again, now that he's not here to actually take him on or defend himself, that this is the reason now to try to defame his name. But I'm so happy that he has, lawyers and people. He has so many people of means and income and influence who love and respect him, that I don't think it's going to get very far personally, even based upon what Mr. Obsidian said earlier. So
I'll say one more thing and then I'll back out because I know other guys want to talk. But yeah, again, it goes back to the folks who got a whole lot to say right now and don't really have any and didn't have a whole bunch to say earlier. I've seen some stuff. I'm fine if you disagree. Liking or disliking somebody, that's immaterial. You can like somebody, you can dislike them. That doesn't matter. What I don't appreciate, what I don't like to see is the outright and blatant mistruths, about somebody after they're no longer here to defend themselves.
Right.
And, you got media outlets doing it. You got, individual creators doing it. I even hit one up and say, hey, be advised that, you know, there might be lawsuits coming out of this based on, you know, and he's like, I ain't afraid of nobody. Okay, all right. Well, I guess you got it like that.
That's right.
That's what Tasha K said. Where she at now? Outside.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So people,
I don't mean to laugh. Please forgive me. I don't mean to laugh. That was an autonomous response.
Wait, isn't she? But Tasha K, she's still on, ain't she? I never really watched her like that. But isn't she still on? Am I sure?
Yeah, she's down about 4 million.
Yeah. I mean, I know there's ways that they handle that when you get a lawsuit that you can't really pay off. I know there's ways that they do that. You can file bankruptcy and a whole bunch of other stuff and everything else. But my whole point is, if you're some creator out here running around spewing nonsense, you don't even have the resources of a Tasha K to even fight back.
Fair point.
And I wouldn't even mess with it, you know. And it's fine to attack the talking points, not the person. That's a basic thing we always say in any kind of debate or discussion or any kind of civil discourse. Attack the argument, not the person. And that's what people are literally doing. And I cannot respect that. I can't get behind that. And you know, those people who, if they, you know, mess around and get too big, they're going to get whatever it is they get coming out of that. I've even, you know, I haven't done it too much. I try to kind of stay away from that, but I just, you know, hit one guy with a nice little, hey, understand that there might be something coming out of this, to include that woman who they were actually lying about and all the other stuff and everything else. So it's just a whole lot of stuff.
It needs to be said that Mr. DennisSpurling Esquire, he is a litigator by profession. Most people don't know this. Most people, regardless of color or gender, who holds a JD, a Juris Doctorate, who's a lawyer, most of them, even if they pass the bar, are not litigators. They're not trial lawyers. The vast majority. Trial lawyers are like a completely different animal. They like to fight. They like it. They like it a lot. And you can see on his channel, he likes it a lot. He's putting cases on people left and right. And he
says he loves it. He literally says he likes doing that. But anyway, hey, you know, that's all I have. I don't want to take up too much time. Hey, Shay, love what you're doing. Love the channel. And, you know, love the fact that, you know, you're working to inspire other women. I know it's mostly a channel for women, but men listen to you too. And we can take talking points and tips to kind of help us in our lives too. So I appreciate what you're doing. And thanks for, you know, supporting, you know, the community, you know, women and black men in particular. Thank you for what you're doing.
Absolutely. My pleasure. I know, Uncle Locke, I wanted to give you a chance to weigh in real quick. Is that Amethyst Stone? Do you want to call in? I see you over here saying that you want to debate. I mean, you know, you going back and forth with Mr. Obsidian. Are you trying to call in? I mean, we can handle this right here. Just keep it respectful. But I got a few more minutes.
Come out wherever you are.
More than welcome. Y'all, this will be, because I know we have looks like we have a debater wants to have a conversation with Mr. Obsidian, presumably about this topic, right?
Shay, I got to get
anything that she would like to discuss. We can do it right here.
Okay, well, I'll keep this. So real quick, but as we figure that out, I know Torraine, you had or Mr. Walker, you had something you wanted to say, and then Uncle Locke, I want to give you a chance to weigh in.
Yeah, I just want to say something really quickly. If you take away everything that Kevin Samuels said, if you take away the reactions to Kevin Samuels and his passing and the things he said, something that's being overlooked that I think we really need to pay attention to is Kevin Samuels left a blueprint for black men and black women and black creatives to be able to create their own empires. People don't realize that Kevin Samuels grew a YouTube page from 80,000 people for 4 years into basically a juggernaut with 1.5 million followers over like a year. Now, the pandemic had a lot to do with that. There was the fact that, you know, there were a lot of people were home and they just were looking for something to watch, but he made engaging content to pull people in. And he did that by himself. That's the thing people aren't getting. To the point where he had major brands, perfume companies, radio, TV, and I don't know how true it is, but I think there were talks for him to probably organize some sort of talk show at one point. He did all that with just his voice and his passion. And I think that's a very good lesson for people like you, people like me, anybody who wants to get out of their box and be heard. If you're a black person, I think that's an amazing lesson for people. It's part of that entrepreneurial spirit that black people have always had to have. Yeah, you know, whether it was hip hop artists selling records out of the trunk of the car, whether it was somebody like a Dolomite, like in the movie where they show him taking that movie all around the country to every hood and blowing up that way, That spirit is in all of us. And I think he just took it into a digital realm and showed that you can do this with yourself, with a phone, with your laptop, and build something with that. And that's, I think, the lesson that people need to take away from that you can be a creative, you can own your content, you can monetize your content, and you can make a living off of that by yourself without having to bend over and sell your soul to somebody else. Or at least you can make a deal on your own terms. And that's all I have to say.
No, I think absolutely the his success, like I said, love him or hate him. I mean, the level of respect that he demands is, I mean, you know, it is what it is. Like it speaks for itself. Like I said, you can hate completely everything that he said, but have to respect the fact that that was a hardworking man that was dedicated to, you know, doing what he did and got a lot of respect, you know, and had a lot of success. So completely agree. Uncle Locke, I wanted to give you a chance to weigh in.
Hey, how you doing, man?
Good. What you got? What do you have in this whole topic?
I would like to say in response to the, you know, the original title that, you know, the individuals in the Black Manosphere who might have the aesthetic that might be similar to Kevin Samuels, or the thirst for war or battle as Kevin Samuels, they need to step up and continue, because I mean, these black by default females need to be put on display. So, you know, black men in the market can have a clear distinction between a black woman and a black lady, but in comparison to them, I think that, of course, we still need an antagonist in order to continue the conversation. You know, I've heard DennisSpurling thing today, and I'm like, my man worked for like, he worked for 3 years off of 3 hours of sleep. That's a lot. And it kind of reminds me of, that's how Malcolm X did. Malcolm X went, I'm not making no comparison, but I'm just saying, like, you know, it's just like, that's a lot of hard work for 3 years for only 3 hours of sleep. Of course, I'm paraphrasing, but that's a lot. And not saying that we need somebody to do exactly the same thing, but we still need an antagonist so this space can expand. You know, he inspired me, you know, to get back into the gym so I can get rid of these extra chins. But that's what I say. If we don't take the opportunity to do something, I believe we're going to lose the momentum, you know. And I know you're such a lady and you like calling these females women and ladies. I don't think they fit the requirements to be called that. You know, the nicest thing I can call them is females. But I don't think that black women are speaking up, because a lot of black women that I know versus the black females that I know, they are totally different categories, you know. They're not the same caliber of female. So, you know, a lot of these people, like I'm reading this book about, you know, brain and all that, the brain functions and all this. And I just came to a conclusion that a lot of these females who walk around in their jammies and they hats, like they still sleep in the bed, a lot of them technically are consciously sleeping. They might look like they're awake, but they are subconsciously asleep. They're still unconscious. That's why they dress like they in the bed. So a lot of these people just ain't gonna get it versus the ones who need to get it. You know, we do need to keep this thing going. So the youth who's coming up, like I on Kevin Samuels' show, he had plenty of young ladies in their teenage years and in their early 20s saying they don't want to be like the individuals who made it to 40 and 60 or 50 years old. And, you know, they don't want to live that man life. You know, they don't want to be a man. They want to be a woman. So we still need somebody to come up. Right now, I don't fit the aesthetic because, you know, I got a couple chins and stuff, but that's it, man. I'm gonna get on.
Yeah, no,
But I thank you for letting me speak.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. Appreciate you calling on and showing some support. Also, shout out to, what is that? Great Britain. I see thinking Kevin's transition means the end of the Black Manosphere is like thinking Jesus being sacrificed was the end of Christianity. Will fight on. Well, and you know, Epstein, he had mentioned this earlier, where you know this message, it was already on here, and they're already talking about it before you know his channel blew up. So it is going to continue. I don't think that there's not going to be another Kevin Samuels, because his unique gifts and the way that he could articulate things combined with his professional experience, like it's his own thing. But that's not to say that there's going to be other content creators who will be able to continue and should continue to represent the voice of men. It's just going to be in its own way. But nevertheless, his impact is uncanny. I mean, like I said, he was trending on Twitter all day in the United States. You got people all across the world who know who he is. And I think even with people going out and trying to slander, there's just too many people of influence who I think really love and respected him and were impacted by him. I had one person DM me, and it was just like, he was like a father to me. Literally, just like he was like a father to me. I didn't have one, and his words meant so much. And so there's a lot of people who, with that impact, are going to. I don't think the slander is going to be able to overlook that or overshadow that. My perspective, though, I could be wrong.
Well, I was saying, me and Bernard Riley was talking about this last week, and because a lot of questions now about succession. Brothers don't use that word, but that's really when we say who's going to be the next Kevin Samuels, who's going to be the next leader of the Manosphere, and so forth. What they really mean is what's the succession plan, and I don't think attempting to find the next Kevin Samuels is the right approach for a number of different reasons.
I agree with that.
I think the more correct approach is, liking it to nanobots. We don't need another Kevin Samuels. We need a whole bunch of little Kevin Samuels, and they all kind of appear in their own way. So we're not looking at clones. We're looking at more inspiration than clones or copies. We need more inspired guys who are inspired by Kevin, and you can see flashes of Kevin in them, but they're incorporated within their own uniqueness. And lots of people look at size and think that size is big, but those who really understand social media know that it's the smaller channels that make things happen, not the big ones. So being a micro influencer is much more influential than having a really gigantic channel, because there's reasons we can go into this, but consider this. Justin Timberlake had upwards of 200 million subscribers. You know how many books he sold?
Huh.
Barely 100,000.
I didn't even know he had a book. You said a book?
Yep.
I didn't even know he had a book.
Exactly. So it's really the micro influencers, 20,000 and less. And if you get a whole bunch of those, like nanobots, like nanotech, if you get a lot of nanobots, you got a fearsome force to deal with. One or two by themselves don't mean nothing. But if you get hundreds or thousands of them, think about 1,000 little Kevin Samuels.
That sounds like a feminist's worst nightmare.
Exactly. So I think that's how brothers have to think about this. A big part of what I'm involved in right now with an event that was in part inspired by Kevin. The Black Manosphere meetup was inspired by Kevin to some extent. And my conception for this time in June next month is about getting brothers to upgrade themselves for a new century. The 21st century represents new challenges, but also brand new opportunities. That's the way I look at it. Sun Tzu, the famous military mind and genius, said in The Art of War that within chaos there's opportunity. There's a lot of chaos going on right now, a time of great change and transition for everyone in the world. But for black men in particular, black men are somewhere conceptually, somewhere stuck between 1950 and 1980. We gotta upgrade our way of thinking for a 21st century world. And so instead of looking for another messianic figure, instead of looking for another messianic figure, or Malcolm X, or King, or something like that, we got to think about having a whole bunch of them, little ones. So my thing is, instead of getting another, big, voice like Kevin, we need to be thinking like we need about 1,000 little ones. We need about 10,000 little ones, something like that. And like you said, that would be the black feminist nightmare. Is you got 10,000 little Kevin Samuels is out there, all of them in their own way doing what they do. They got one guy's got a channel 10,000 subscribers, another guy's got a channel 3,000 subscribers, another guy's got a channel 25,000 subscribers. And they all add up to 1,000 or 10,000 across the planet. Think about that.
Because I see a few comments in here referencing. Yeah, see, this is what Islam was trying to do. I see some referencing to religion. It's interesting because really, the manosphere, and you would know this more than anything. The manosphere, I think, it's been demonized in such a way as to represent this cult-like group of men who are brutes going around trying to abuse women, and it has this almost cult-like personification that I see oftentimes when it's talked about. A lot of times from these more media outlets that are gynocentric. And really, what I've come to understand is, again, just giving men a voice, bringing men to the table. As you mentioned before, when you first came on, how you were tired of hearing the voices of men, the voices of black men in particular, not even being in the conversation, and black women just going on, and women just going on and talking time and time and time again for decades unchecked. And so the manosphere, the black manosphere, has just really brought men to the table. The whole fact, the fact to me that this is being kind of thrown out of proportion, he's almost like a cult leader. I've seen people say that. It's like he's like a cult leader. It's just no, men being seen as men, and men being seen as worthy of honor and respect, just like we say women are, is not cult-like. And to me, that just shows the misandrist aggression, really, or the brainwashing, if you will, that has been happening for decades. For the very fact that we see, especially a black man, being respectful, saying things that are just common sense. You represent just kind of old school wisdom. He's saying these things. A lot of them are just common sense. And it's oh, he's a cult. This is a cult. Shows how the misandry is so deep within even black women that it's they don't even necessarily, people don't even know how to recognize, I think, how far we've gotten. So you saying, we're going to see a little bit of this among men, or more of this among men. It's of course we should see more men to the table. They should be at the table when we're talking about relationships. They should be at the table when it talks about being the community. This should not just be.
But you know something, and Mr. Walker can help me out on this.
Yeah.
When you sit down and think about it, go back to the black feminists. How many of them are actually in active, loving, supportive, cooperative, functioning relationships?
They're not. I would go with a lot of them. Now, there's a few white women, right?
Ask your question again, brother. I didn't hear.
Oh, you didn't hear.
I was saying, how many of the critics of Kevin and his death, how many of them are actually in the black women, many of them black feminists? How many of them are in actual relationships as we speak? Now, a lot's been said about Kevin's own, relationship history. Fair enough. But how many of his critics are in actual relationships?
I don't, there's no way for me to know that, but I do know that some of the loudest ones, I know for a fact, first of all, they're not in relationships with men from the jump, or if they're in a relationship, they're not in relationships with black men. Now, you can draw your own conclusion from that.
Right. And it makes you wonder if they're either in relationships with other black women, or if they're in relationships with non-black men. Why do they care what Kevin says? because Kevin is mainly dealing with the black community. So either way, in terms of heterosexual relationships, so either way, these ladies don't have a dog in the fight. If they're with other black women, okay, so what? So your issue is with, you know, people who have a problem with lesbian relationships, and for the record, I do not. On the other hand, if you're a black woman for whom it applies and you're in a relationship with a non-black man, then your issue is with people who have a problem with interracial relationships. For the record, I do not. And neither did Kevin. He had an issue with neither one of those relationships. He was talking about black men and black women relationships, hetero black relationships. So once again, here we have the busybody black woman that is, you know, Generation X between 41 and 55, and always trying to insinuate themselves into human interactions that don't concern them.
But here's the thing, brother. You're right. It doesn't really concern them personally, but it's not really about relationships. And this is what I keep trying to get people to understand. These people don't care about black women. They don't care about black men. The only thing they really care about is power. That's what this comes down to.
I agree.
And the people who are doing this, and again, I keep telling people this and they won't listen. This conversation is driven by feminists who work in media. They work in academia. They have tenure in academic institutions, and they work in the legal profession. And it's about creating a cadre of people who are the go-tos for the white power structure to listen to. If you have black men and black women talking about things that don't concern them, it automatically negates their play for power. So that's what that's about. They have to silence somebody like a Kevin Samuels, or try to shut down somebody like a Shay, or somebody like that who's talking about stuff that's affecting the community, because it makes them irrelevant and it makes them extinct. That's what that's about. That's why they're pushing this agenda. That's why they're so loud, because they want to be seen to the white power structure as the gatekeepers and the go-to that you're supposed to talk to instead of anybody else. That's what that is.
I agree with you. As a matter of fact, I know for a fact several black feminists, I will not mention their name because I don't want to get Sade in any trouble. But I happen to know for a fact several black feminists who they really don't give a crap about black women. They care a crap about a whole lot about, you know, self-aggrandizement and ego-aggrandizing power. That's really what they care about.
Yeah, they want to be on the lecture circuit and they want to sell their books. That's what this is about.
Yep. I wholeheartedly agree. And it just cracks me up how these people do not want to go head to head with Kevin. They don't want to go head to head with me. They just don't want to do it. Yeah. And it tells you everything you need to know. And these are women that need, black men in particular, men that are, you know, pretty much sycophants, kiss ups, and brown nosers, you know, instead of actually dealing, you know, on equal ground and hashing things out. They know they can't do it.
I gotta run real quick, but I want to tell a really quick story. For people who are listening in, I don't want people to get the idea, and I'm sure Shed doesn't either, that we're just dumping on black women, because like the brother said, there are a lot of sycophant and a lot of simp black men who go along with this stuff, who don't agree with it either, but they do it because it sounds good and they can further their careers. About a year ago, some of y'all might remember the Root came out with this story from a guy that had this website called Very Smart Brothers, and it was what was it said?
That's right.
Straight black men are the white men of black people.
That's correct.
And that article got shared amongst a lot of the black feminist sort of like circle, like people like Jamel and other people like that who are selling it, who are passing this stuff around. That article came out maybe like 2 to 3 months right after the murder of George Floyd. Oh. And I feel like what happened with that was when George Floyd died, you saw an outpouring and awareness of the plight of black men from outside cultures that you'd never seen in this country since maybe like the 1960s. You had the same energy that you see about Ukraine. Think about it. A couple years ago, that same energy was floating around black men and the murders of black men, to the point where like people were paying attention to black men in the street who were pushing back against a lot of white supremacy, brothers like Darren Seals in Ferguson, Missouri, and other cities like Baltimore and stuff like that. That speaks exactly to my point about the fact that the black gatekeepers cannot allow that to stand. Because if black men on the street who didn't go through the Ivy League, who didn't matriculate through the talented 10th, were able to get hold of the mic and get on CNN and speak and talk, it automatically made them irrelevant. So they had to create some sort of wedge issue to kind of divide black men from black women and black LGBT people from black men and make black men out to be the boogeyman we've always been. So I'm saying, I'm giving you all that backstory to tell you that I actually challenged the guy who wrote that story. His name is Damon Young. He said something on social media about what does this mean? And I said what this means is that you people are becoming irrelevant. And he tried to be slick and say something about, do you need a job? I can get you a job if you need it. And I said something snap back, say, I don't want to get a job selling my people out. And we ended up getting down to the point where I said, look, let's set up a Zoom meeting. You bring your opinion about black men, I'll bring mine, and I'll bring my facts and data, and we can do it, and we can charge money, and we can do it for charity. You know, I never heard back.
That's not surprising. That's not surprising at all. A lot of these people don't want to be challenged, I think. They're used to speaking unfiltered, which again, why I think there was such a vitriolic reaction to him, because it's like he was pushing against narratives that women and people have said really for decades and not been challenged. So it's like, how dare you have the audacity to come against how I feel or come against what I'm saying, even if it's detrimental, even if it's based upon lies. How dare you go against my lie that's getting me money? So exactly. Yeah, I totally agree. Well, I do appreciate you calling. I know I do want to be mindful of your time. So like I said, you're welcome back anytime. But
thank you, sister. Thanks to everybody. If you all will follow me, because I definitely want to talk to you brothers, and Shay already has my info, but if you need it, send it to me, either here or Torrine Walker on Twitter if you're on there, please.
Thank you.
All right, homie.
All right, brother. Y'all be up.
Ma'am, are you saying that, are you asking, is there a contingency plan? Is that what you're trying to imply?
Well,
Miss Sade?
You're saying a contingency plan, help me understand.
In regards to the Black Manosphere. That's what you're elaborating on?
So yeah, if you came on, I kind of explained this a little earlier on, but basically, my question was based upon some of the different things I was hearing from the collective, right? Now, Mr. Walker went back and forth as what that collective represents, but there is a collective of Black women who are basically celebrating, or if they're not openly celebrating, they are silently celebrating his passing, thinking that it might actually refer to or represent the end of an era, the end of what he was representing, the end of what he was saying, the misogynistic, misogynoir message that he promoted. So that's why you have women celebrating. And so with that, after listening to their positions and listening to what they had to say, I asked a question. Does this mean that the message of the Black Manosphere ends? So that was my question. My position stands that no, I do not, because it was there before he really, before it really rose. And really what the Black Manosphere has come to mean, from my understanding, is basically bringing men back to the table. Bringing them back to the table. We're talking about relationships, community, all the things that impact families and relationships, bringing them to the table. Men's voice needs to be heard when it comes to relationships. It should not be all about women, because that would be one-sided and that would be weird. So for that reason, I don't think it's going anywhere. It was there before he became really popular. And I think we see men are they're tired, and they have platforms and they figured out, hey, this worked. So it may not be another him per se, but it's going to be other men who are saying, yes, I want my voice to be heard. I have a platform to do it. I saw a person was successful. He impacted me. So I don't think it's going away. My position.
I bet that's cool. Like, I get that. What I'm saying is, like, what platform will be in place in order for Black men voice to not be silenced, or going back into the barbershop and going back into the locker rooms, or whenever we have our bromance moments? Like, what platform will be available so we won't be silenced moving forward? I mean, I listen to a lot of different content creators in the Black Manosphere, and I don't, unless I miss some, I don't see that the outlet, that outlet being as available. I don't see that outlet being available.
I don't know if I'm in the position, to really say how Black men are going to be moving or organizing moving forward. This is sitting. I don't know if you have anything to add to that. because it's not really my wheelhouse. Like I said, I talk for women.
And my fault for not acknowledging you, big homie, Mr. Obsidian.
No problem. How you been, man?
So
I'm all gravy. Actually, I live in Chester, so you know you're in Philly.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're not far from away from me.
Right.
Yeah. I think, like I said, I think the calls for the end of the Black Manosphere is seriously exaggerated, and we're not going anywhere. We're going to be just fine.
Right. So I got Mr. Blackneffect here. It's always good to have you on. Feel free to share your perspective, and then I'm going to wrap this up in the next few minutes.
All right, thank you for having me up, Shay. Can you hear me well?
Yeah, I can hear you.
You know, what's going on, Obsidian? What's going on, brother?
Hey,
Loke,
brother.
I think that's how you pronounce it. Okay, so you know, I missed a lot. So if I you know go on a road somebody already paved, my bad. Okay, let's get into it. Rest in peace, Kevin. But no, this does not end with Kevin. Okay, Kevin came in to something that was already built, and the beauty of what Kevin was is he channeled a lot of our talking points, and he used it to show the world what Black men have been dealing with in the dating scene and the marriage scene for the better part of 5 decades, right? And his death does not end that, because young men and men in general, Black men specifically, will continue to have these experiences. And so, no, we will not go back into the barbershop and be talking about these things only in barbershops and in smoke shops around the country. That's not going to happen. The genie is already out of the bottle, and women in general, Black women specifically, are going to have to deal with what it means to have a more aware and enlightened Black men, right? So this does not end with Kevin Samuels, you know, and it was good to see the thousands of women that he interviewed. The world got to see that this is what Black men have been talking about, because it was easy for Black women to have a monopoly on the conversation in the 80s and the 90s, because white media used them as somewhat of the model minority in the Black community, right? And some Black women understood that was the game that was being played, but the vast majority of them didn't. And so what we got to see on Kevin's show was these are the daughters and granddaughters of Alice Walker, right? Of Oprah, right? So like, you know, of Shonda Rhimes, of all these different women who have been writing books and putting out TV shows for the better part of the past 40 years, finding really interesting ways of insulting Black men under the guise of constructive criticism, telling one's truth in tough love, right? So Kevin Samuels was the answer to Oprah in many ways. And a lot of people, Obsidian's older than me, he could tell you, a lot of people like to play down the impact of Oprah and of Ricky Lake and of all these different talk shows of the 90s and the late 80s and their impact, right? And the Disneyfication of relationships and these romance novels and these rom-coms and their impact on the way we see relationships and the way women see relationships and the way Black women see relationships, right? I'm not gonna spoil it for you guys, but I'll just say, for those of you that haven't seen Doctor Strange 2, pay very close attention to the Scarlet Witch in her character. And you tell me that that's not the modern woman, for those of you that saw it. Right? I'm not gonna ruin it. Y'all just pay attention for those of you that know. So like, that's what men in general, Black men specifically, have been having to deal with for the better part of the past 5 decades. And the death of Kevin doesn't end that, right? And I understand that their sisters dancing on his grave. By the way, side note, Shay, you did a masterful job at covering how these sisters were celebrating his death. You did I'm working on my video also about it. I should have put it out 2 days ago, but you know, I'm being a lazy bum and I've been kind of busy also, but masterful job. And it goes to show you that they wanted the delusion so bad that they saw Kevin as an affront to their existence. They were saying that he's terrorizing the Black community. Imagine saying that a middle-aged man just putting a camera and a microphone up and then asking Black women to tell us what they think about men, what they think about dating, what they think about marriage. And then you call him a terrorist for just telling these women that they're delusional when their life shows that they're delusional. If you're a heavyset sister with a chest tattoo with 2 or 3 kids, and Kevin Samuels tell you, hey, you're not gonna get LeBron, how is what he's saying an affront to you for stating the obvious? You're already in your mid-30s, and he's just telling you the truth. Oh, there's a better way to say it. You can. There is no better way. We've been doing the air quotes better way to say it, a nicer way to say it for the past 40 years.
Right. Literally. And it's like over here calling them a terrorist while they openly promote abortion and the aborting of black male babies. Like make that make sense. It doesn't. It's illogical and stupid. And I'm like, we look ridiculous. And we don't even know that we just invested a multi-million-dollar campaign into SYSBM. We just did it by our own actions.
And I'm happy you have Obsidian on here, because these calls for the Black Manosphere ending with the death of Kevin. Obsidian is one of the founding members of the Black Manosphere. Like, literally. It started before Kevin. It's gonna continue past Kevin, but Kevin was definitely one of our high points. He was definitely one of the brothers that brought our message to the forefront. And the beauty of Kevin bringing our message to the forefront is not just him. It's that he showed you what he's talking about. All those interviews with those women showed the world, this is what black men have been saying, that y'all kept on pretending like we didn't know what we were talking about, or that we're sexist monsters, or that we're misogynists, we're homophobic, we're colorists. And Kevin just was like, all right, here's a microphone in front of all your daughters. Now what? Right? Now what? Especially for the sisters that don't know how to play coy, that don't know how to use euphemisms for essentially seeing men as walking wallets and overglorified guard dogs, not seeing men as human beings. When you put a microphone in front of her face and she actually says it, now what, Oprah? Right? Now what? You see what I'm saying? So like, it doesn't end with Kevin. I think that's, to sum it all up, obviously, I know other brothers probably said this before me, but it doesn't end with Kevin. Kevin he made it supremely difficult to continue to talk about black men like they're the monsters of the black community, and black women are these innocent little dainty creatures that wouldn't harm a fly until black men come and destroy their life. It's really hard to make that argument now that we have thousands of videos, not just from Kevin, but from men across the manosphere, right? Black men specifically across the Black Manosphere that are showing you. You got a British sister, black British sister saying a man is nothing but a man is his money. You got a light-skinned sister in America saying, well, if I make more money than him, I will mistreat him. You know, you got the Spanish girl that was kind of hot about a year ago saying, yeah, I will abuse you, right? What did she say? You ain't just gonna leave me and just take everything. I don't care if you paid for everything, right? I'm gonna keep the Beamer. I'm gonna make you have to chase me for it. That was a Spanish chick saying that, right? Like, you got white women who were born, you know, solidly middle class in their mid-30s, single as a loose leaf paper, telling you, if I can't find a man like my dad, then I'm gonna be single. How much your dad make? Like 150? All right, have fun. Have fun trying to find that. You know, you're in your mid-30s. Apparently it hasn't worked for the past, you know, let's say 15, 17 years. Right? So Kevin just exposed that, and now he put a lot of these college-educated feminists, these women rights women. He put their back to the wall. What is your response to this? And I keep on saying this over and over again. Black women specifically find themselves in a very interesting position. You think you're better than your black male counterparts. Non-black men aren't checking, and not enough women want to engage in same-sex relationships. So now what you gonna do? I'll pause right there. Y'all go ahead.
I mean, like I said, I don't have much to say other than that I agree. That I completely and totally agree that cat's out the bag. Now we're starting to hear, to your point, that no, the collective of black women are not some innocent, dainty, frail women who are being abused by these big, overbearing, overpowering black men that just beat them every second of the moment. Like, they're not all over here muling for their men as the men just stay at home and they go and work 2 or 3 jobs. Like, no. That does happen, but we know that is not the general overall experience. And I do think it's about time that If you want to talk about relationships, both sides be heard. To me, that just seems balanced and respectful. And unfortunately, as you mentioned before, a lot of women, especially those I think who didn't grow up with a father or a strong male influence, don't understand that the way men operate and think is different. And men just bring a different set of values generally in a different perspective. It's like, if you just go around women the whole time, and you're going to be thinking about their emotions and coddling and, oh, girl, you this, you're that, you're that, you're that. But who's there to tell you the truth? Not to say women can't tell you the truth, but very, very often, if you just go up around women, you're not necessarily hearing the full side of the picture.
Let me say this shit.
That happens.
Let's talk about the video that blew Kevin up. We already know it, the average at best video. That was a testament to there is no nice way. That was Kevin tried. He tried to tell her, hey, you might be shooting too high. Oh, you got a 13-year-old son on top of that? Okay, rate yourself. Okay, so you have a sketchy baby daddy, you have a 13-year-old son, you're telling me that you're 5 in the face, a 6 with makeup on, these are your own words, and I'm trying to be nice, ma'am. I'm trying to be nice. It ain't looking good. If you're already in your mid-30s and you single still, and you're looking for a 6-figure man, and you're telling me, you're saying that you can't submit unless he make as much or more than you. Those are your words. Mm-hmm. It ain't looking good. He tried. That's a testament to ain't no nice way. When women say, oh, it's the way you say it, it's the way, let's be honest, there's no way to present it. What y'all really want is for men in general, black men specifically, to come in and find a backwards way of still blaming black men. Let's call a thing a thing. You just want a backwards way of essentially doing the Derek Jackson thing. Finding it just a really interesting way of backdooring right back to, these niggas ain't shit, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a very good point.
Absolutely.
That's what it is. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, absolutely. So I just saw, DennisSpurling As live. This just in, it says DennisSpurling As live, presumably about presumably related to some Kevin Samuels update. But this has been a good topic, you guys. I'm going to wrap this up because I actually need to get started on dinner too. But I don't know if you guys have any final thoughts. Oh, I did see some super chats come through. Torrential Jones, his teachers have said worse things to students like Kevin has to these females. Game over. Facts. Absolutely facts. Also, black men need to flood college because college is where you find a suitable mate. I would hope so. Although I'm going to be honest. I went to Berkeley, out in UC Berkeley, out in California, which is very, if you're not familiar with it, it's incredibly liberal. They were tree huggers and protesters way back. Since I've known it, and so
since the 60s.
Yes. So the thing about college, at least I can speak for myself. The thing about college is that it's not always male friendly. I don't know how to put it. I know someone who's attending right now and has a lot of horror stories about how hard it is for him to try to find a woman that is a cis heterosexual natural born woman. Let's just start there. And then if you don't get past that criteria, doesn't hate men, is not a just cold-hearted, male-hating, blazing feminist and proud to do so. So I think it used to be that a man could go to college and find a woman that wanted to be a wife, but I think now that's not easy. Especially if you go to college, like a really liberal college in a liberal area, good luck. That's all I can say. Not to say it can't happen, but
I'll make my closing, Shay. I'll let Obsidian get the final word because I know he's gonna set it ablaze. Okay. One thing that we noticed, what Kevin showed us, with his years of work and definitely when he started to focus on women, is this is the cost of female enlightenment coming at the cost of your sons, especially your black male sons. Yeah. When you couch modernity and being an enlightened and metropolitan, cosmopolitan, 21st century human being, when you couch that as you have to be misandrous out the gate, you have to at the very least have a low level contempt for Black men, if not high level. This is what it looks like. And what you saw over and over again from light-skinned Black women, dark-skinned Black women, heavy-set Black women, right? Lighter Black women, Black women with tattoos, Black women with no tattoos, educated Black women, non-educated, Black women that had money, Black women that didn't have money. It didn't matter. What you saw was at the least a low level of contempt for Black men, a low level contempt for men in general, but specifically for Black men. And when that becomes the standard at which you show that you're a modern woman, that you have this understanding of men, and it causes you to have contempt for them, because that's what they couch it at, right? Couches at. Then you see what we saw on Kevin's show night after night on Instagram and on YouTube. And, rest in peace to Kevin. He did a great job. He started focusing on women, 2.5 years ago at max? And we got to see, and mind you, I got to stress this part before I go. This is in the middle of COVID. These women were talking crazy about men in the middle of COVID. They didn't know how bad it could have got. And even in the midst of Armageddon, they were still talking about men like we ain't ish. So rest in peace, Kevin. You did a masterful job, brother. I hope to see you in the afterlife. And I'll end it right there. And, no, it does not end with Kevin, and y'all have a good night.
Thanks for calling in. Shout out to Malarkey. I see with the 5. Well done, Shay. Always a pleasure to have you here. Malarkey 5. Mr. Obsidian, what do you got?
You know what? The brother just summed up everything I was going to say. So all I'll say is everything he said and then some.
Right.
He really drove it home. And I wish we could have gotten together under different circumstances, but here we are. And we shouldn't. We should do this a bit more often.
Absolutely. Yeah. And like I said, I appreciate you. It's always a pleasure to have you on to collaborate because, as I mentioned before, I see no benefit in men being over there and women being over there.
Yeah.
That's not how you ever talk about relationship. Like that's not how you do it. So I think there needs to be more time for men to voice their opinion and at the very least have it be heard and respected. Doesn't mean you have to agree. You can mutually agree to disagree or go the other way, but we shouldn't shame or berate or demonize somebody just because they simply want men to have a voice. I think that needs to be put in check. So again, thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much, and we're going to do this again sometime.
Yeah.
But what do you think of the new book, by the way?
I have a lot to say. So I'll say this. I have a nice vacation planned in the next few weeks where I plan on trying to get through it in its entirety.
Yeah.
So stay tuned. When I'm ready, I'm gonna send you my my review and everything. So,
yeah, we should get together on the air and talk about it.
That'd be great.
Looking forward to it.
Okay, awesome.
All right, thank you.
All right.
Peace.
Okay. All right, guys. So this was fun. It was good to hear everybody's perspective, guys. Just to wrap this up again, I don't necessarily think that the message is going everywhere. Why? Because what is the manosphere really about? It's just about men having a voice. Of course, we can all paint to the crazy extremist groups in the manosphere, just like we can in the female space. But at the end of the day, I think just men have said, listen, we want to have a voice, especially Black men. We want to have a voice. And so as long as that exists, as long as there are a generation of men who feel like they've been silenced and they have been silenced, and they now figure out there's a way for the voice to be heard, the message is going to continue. And I think it should. I think it's about time a culture is created or an environment where it's created where men and women can share their perspective and share how they see things, share how they see relationships, life, community. And at the very least be mutually respected and be heard and understood, because there's no way there could ever be talks of female empowerment or leveling up to better options or building a community. You can't even get to that point if there's such dissension and such division between the community, between men and women. Men and women being divided is not the recipe for a healthy community, for a healthy functioning community or society for that matter. So this is why, for that very reason, it's not going anywhere, and I hope it doesn't. So guys, those are my thoughts. I do appreciate all of you guys for being on here. Be sure to hit the like button before you head out. Also, be sure to show some support. You can find me on Cash App or Venmo, Shay Sharday. Also, stay tuned for other upcoming content that I'll be sharing. Be going live, all kind of different stuff. Anyways, guys, thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk later. Bye.